Wilson. I'm the matchmaker and co-owner of Paradigm Pro Wrestling, and you are watching Drinking at Moe's.
Everybody, welcome to Drinkin' Moe's. Your host, Big Mo here. If you're watching YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, turn on the notifications because the next couple of weeks are pretty big. If you're listening to this, it's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor. Leave a rating. Definitely helps out. Today, excited. I got with me one of the guys behind Paradigm Pro Wrestling. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Glad to have you. One thing I like to start off with each of my guests is what got you started as a fan, and then what got you started, wanting to get into the business?
So as far as a fan goes, some of my earliest memories are of wrestling. My dad had one of those de-scrambler boxes, right? It's outside of the statute of limitations, so I can talk about it. But we could watch all the stuff, all the channels. So like one of my earliest memories is when Undertaker beat Hulk Hogan. I was probably 3 or 4 when that happened, when he beat him for the title. That's like one of my earliest memories. But beyond that, I got real into it from in the mid-90s. The UWFI started producing North American pay-per-views. And I would just sometimes watch what they called the Barker channel, which was the preview channel on the cable box, where it would show you things coming up. And they were promoting like, it's real. Check out the hardest hitting wrestling of all time. And I got hooked from it. Like, so I remember watching those with my dad. And so that kind of started my love affair with like wrestling and combat sports and more generally.
Gotcha. And one thing I will bring up here in a little bit is the whole UWFI deal. Just, I read up on some of those rules and it's like, okay, this is pretty unique. And, the thing that you find a lot of independent promotions need to do is something to set them apart, something unique. And those rules, at least as far as here in North America goes, does just that. But what got you started in wanting to start Paradigm Pro?
So there was a group of friends of us. There's 4 of us that principally run the day-to-day of Paradigm. We were going to some other shows in the area, and we had some fun. And some opportunity came out to help out at another promotion, and it just kind of grew from there. Prior to getting into promoting, I had done wrestling training, and it had a few matches. I wasn't very good. My body didn't really keep up with it. But I made a lot of contacts that way. And then when the opportunity to promote came up, I jumped on it. And it's been a much better fit for me than actually being in the ring was.
That's cool. And like I mentioned a little bit ago, those UWFI rules, and you brought up UWFI, a lot of the matches on your shows end up having UWFI rules. For those that might be watching or listening, would you be able to explain those rules? Because, like I said, I read up on them. Very unique concept.
So it's like the elevator pitch. The simplest way to say it is it's a hybrid of mixed martial arts, MMA, and pro wrestling. To get a bit more complicated, there's no pinfalls, there's no disqualifications, there's no countouts. Fights can end via knockout, countout, TKO, like referee stoppage, or via a point system, which is similar to a point system used in like boxing or amateur wrestling. You start with 15 points, you lose points for certain things like being suplexed, you lose a point. You're knocked down by strikes, you lose 3 points. If you commit a foul, you lose a point. So if you run out of points, it's kind of the same as a TKO.
Gotcha. Yeah. The thing that, like I mentioned, a lot of pro wrestling promotions are needing to do right now is with the sheer amount of choices out there, a lot of places are needing to find that thing that makes them unique, something to set them apart. And these UWFI rules are definitely a thing to set you guys apart, and I, for one, am enjoying it. because I love that grittiness, that intensity, and those UWFI rules really, in my opinion, bring that out.
Yeah, I think so. It's a lot more intense, than some traditional pro wrestling. It's a lot faster paced. Our average match time is only about 4 minutes. That doesn't mean they're not doing a whole lot of the matches. Like there's a lot that happens in those 4 minutes. It's, we always tell the guys that it's sprints.
Yeah.
I like to tell people we're not a less is more promotion. Because sometimes when people say quick matches, like, there's some philosophy on the indies or some older school promoters that are like, oh, less is more. I am the opposite of that. More is more. But I like it to be fast. I've got a pretty short attention span, and I think a lot of audiences do as well. So we just try and, keep it as hard hitting and as fast as possible.
Yeah, no, there is definitely a lot of fans out there. I mean, I've been guilty of it a little bit myself with the short attention span. So, if you're able to pack a lot in a short amount of time, then hey, sounds pretty damn good to me.
And there's a misconception too that like you can't tell a story in that amount of time, but you really can. One of my favorites from our last season 4 of the UWFI Contender Series, was Joseph Alexander versus Tommy Vendetta. This match went about 97 seconds, but it was back and forth. It was competitive. It had an electric finish, and they told a story in 97 seconds. And that ended up probably being our most popular match of the season. So I still think you can get some of the storytelling aspects of wrestling across. It's just a little bit harder to do it, but it makes it more exciting when it does happen.
I definitely agree. I mean, there's no real time limit on being able to tell a story. If you got the right people in there, they can tell a story in a short amount of time, and sounds like you've had some guys on your shows that have definitely been able to accomplish that.
Yeah, I think so. I'm really proud of what our roster's done with the with the format.
Yeah, and I am relatively new to the product, but everything that I've been hearing and everything I've been seeing, I'm like, okay, this is a promotion I can get behind, even though I might not necessarily be in the immediate area. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska.
We get people from all over. That's one of the cool things about doing a niche product like this is that, we've got fans that leave us reviews in German on Cage Match. We've got a couple fans fly into our last show, and it's always real flattering to me. Like talking to you, you're in Nebraska. I talked to somebody that was in South America watching the shows, and it's pretty cool. Because it's such a niche thing that it's not a huge audience by any means, but the people that like it are pretty passionate about it, and it's got wider geographic reach than I think we would have without it.
Oh yeah, I've been hearing a lot on. I think I contacted you on Twitter. I've been hearing a lot on there. It's like everybody that's talking about it's just been loving it, and I mean the stuff that I've been able to see, I've been loving myself.
Yeah, we're on Twitter a lot. I spend too much time on Twitter, if we're being honest.
I'm probably a little guilty of that myself, especially after getting this show started, trying to spread the word. I'm literally going off of word of mouth, and every little bit I can do, I'm trying to do.
Sure.
All right, so you got it. When I was online doing some notes for the show, you got a show coming up soon called So Far to Go. Am I right there?
Yeah, So Far to Go. And that's this Friday night, Friday the 13th. I don't know when you're going to record this, but it's on Friday the 13th.
Okay, and yeah, from some of the people I've seen on the little picture for the show, you got some pretty great talent there. Hoodfoot. I saw Cole Radrick. I've actually talked to him about coming on the show, but as a lot of independent wrestlers are, pretty busy people, so it's kind of been a little bit of a message tag. But I mean, hey, it is what it is.
Cole and Hoodfoot too. Hoodfoot's terrible about responding to messages. Hope he hears this. He's still got 4 DMs, man. Answer your DMs so I can book you more. But yeah,
And, like, you. Oh, I was gonna say he's one that I've seen on a handful of shows that's like, damn, that guy's intense.
yeah, we're real proud of everything that Hoodfoot's accomplished. You know, Hoodfoot's been wrestling with us since 2019. Started out on our pre-shows, and now he's like one of our constant main eventers. You know, we had either his first or second death match we had last July, and he's kind of blown up on the death match scene. So I thought it was cool that we were able to do that. Him and Josh Crane at Midnight City. Um, Hell of a talent, hell of a guy, great person. I'm thrilled to see him kind of taking off. Cole's another guy that's been with us. Honestly, it's like since the start. I want to say Cole's been wrestling with us since like 2017. Just a long time now. You know, he's a day one guy. Always hungry. Proudly reps Indiana wrestling. I love Cole. He's wrestling for the Paradigm Championship against Sugar Dunkerton. Should be this Friday night.
Okay. That was one of the next questions I had. Online, at least on the website, there wasn't so much as far as the match card. Would you mind talking a little bit about some, especially that Paradigm Pro match, the title match?
Yeah, absolutely. So the headlining match is going to be Sugar Dunkerton versus Shug D. And it's Cole is a former Paradigm champion for us. He last held the title he held the title from November of 2019 until July of 2020 when he dropped. So this is kind of his first title shot since then. Then we've also got Big Beef, Gnarls Garvin, who some people might know from MLW. He was recently there versus O'Shea Edwards. That's going to be a great like hoss battle, really hard hitting stuff. We've got
I'm a big fan of those big hoss fights.
Oh, me too. They're one of our trademarks. You know, you get two big guys in there just knocking the crap out of each other. We love it.
Oh yeah.
And we've also got the Hoodfoot. He's defending the Midwest Territory.com championship against Joe Black, who's making his Paradigm debut. That's going to be another kind of hoss battle that we're real excited for. And then we've got Shooters Don't Die, our tag team champions, which are Don't Die Miles and Freddie Hudson. They're defending the tag team titles against a couple of veterans, Kerry Awful, who some people might know from the Carnies, and Juicy Jimmy, who is a veteran that's been around for a long, long time. We've got like 8 matches in all. It's going to be a really fun card.
It sure sounds like it. And you brought up Don't Die Miles. I'm actually going to be interviewing him for the show here. Oh, coincidentally, the night that I fly into St. Louis for the Warrior Wrestling event there, I got invited to be a part of the Fan Fest and show. And, well, before I got invited to that, I had scheduled him for an interview, and it turned out to be the same day that I flied in. So I'm like, hey, yeah, if we are a little delayed, sorry.
Yeah, he's a nice kid. I'm sure he'll understand.
Cool about it. He's been real nice about it. And it's like when I told him about it being Warrior, he's like, "Oh man, I wouldn't tell you to pass that up."
Yeah, they put on a really good product.
Yeah. I know it's a little more. It looked like they're a little more out than a lot of these ones that run like every once a month. When's the next one after So Far to Go?
So we'll have a show in June as well. The details on that we're still ironing out. Then we've got a big show in July called Terminal Combat, which is one of our flagship events. That's going to be July 15th in Sellersburg, Indiana. Concept of that is matches start under UWFI rules. It's UWFI rules for the first 5 minutes. And then if there's no winner within 5 minutes, there's no more rules. So then it becomes like a hardcore match. That gets a little crazy. We did that last year. People really liked it. It's a very unique to us sort of thing. We've got a big timer in the background, like for the 5 minutes to go. And like, you don't know which matches are going to go into hardcore and which aren't, because like the average match length in UWFI is only 4 minutes. So about half of them go hardcore, about half of them don't. So it's just kind of fun mix of different gimmicks and such.
I'm definitely gonna have to keep my eye on that one because I'm definitely interested in that whole concept because it definitely sounds something right up my alley. I like the uncertainty of which ones will go past the 5 minutes and go to the no rules and which ones will stay in the 5 minutes. That definitely sounds intriguing.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with it. It's I always joke that I never want to run that show because it's expensive to buy all those weapons. Like buying gimmicks for matches is really expensive. Like we've spent thousands of dollars on doors, in the last couple of years. So it's one of those things. But I'm just giving it a hard time. We have fun. I love that. It's one of my favorite shows. I wasn't gonna run it again, but Twitter asked us to. Like basically, we were finally like, fine. We get a certain amount of retweets, we'll do it. We got them, so I'm like, all right, we'll do it. Pending New Japan schedule, Tom Lawler should be participating in one of those matches. So that will be
okay.
Tom Lawler's a regular for us, but we weren't able to have him in for Terminal Combat last year, and he really wanted to try that match type. So I really hope kind of the stars align and we can have him in this year to do that.
I mean, he is definitely the type that he would definitely fit right in with that concept.
Oh yeah, for sure. Tom's insane. We love Tom.
Well, speaking of that sort of concept, are there any guys out there that you used in here that you might like to bring in there available?
We've had some discussions here and there. One of the things we'd like to do is bring in old UFC fighters. We've been able to bring in a few of them. Tom Lawler, works for us regularly. Stephan Bonner, another UFC Hall of Famer, has worked for us a few times. We brought in Dan Severn 2 years ago now. So we like to work them in where we can. I can't talk too much about that stuff, though, because we have to go through agents and stuff with them. But that's something we're looking at. And then, we've brought in a couple people that fought in the original UWFI, so that's always fun when we're able to do that. I'd love to do more of that, but to be honest, we've got such great young talent that comes through our Contender series that's where the majority of our new talent comes from.
Okay, and nothing wrong with that if you got the talent right here in the spotlight. I mean, heck, go ahead. And I mean, from everything I've seen, you guys got some great talent coming through your promotion.
I think so, yeah. We get a lot of people, kind of the behind-the-scenes gimmick with Contender Series is we put out an open application where wrestlers can apply to be part of the series. And we always get a lot of applicants. One season we actually got like 200 applicants, which was kind of blew my mind. Because the first time we did this, we had like 20 people apply, but it's kind of caught on. And we get some great talent that comes in that way.
That's awesome, man. Oh, you froze there.
Sorry, you're freezing a little bit on my end too.
Yeah, so.
Ooh, sponsor break time. Sometimes you just don't want people seeing certain things, especially when it comes to things like erectile dysfunction. So, this sponsor break is for our sponsor, Bonerfill. It ships to your home in discreet packaging because you know what? Like I just said, you don't want your neighbors seeing your boner pills on your porch. Get Bonerfill today.
Okay, no problem. So, you were mentioning about some of the people you were bringing in?
Yeah, just we've had a lot of great talent be developed through the Contender series. One of my favorites, she's at every show, is Jordan Blade. She actually came out for us on Contender Season 1 out of Richmond, Virginia, which, that's a long trip out here to Indiana.
Yeah.
She's really kind of become a workhorse for us. We had a show in March. She was in a tournament. Okay, so we had 2 shows in a row, a doubleheader. We were filming 2.
Yeah.
and she went to a time limit draw in the first one. And then in the second show was a tournament. She made it to the final. She ended up wrestling 5 matches that night, and killed all of them. Like, that's just, we love the hunger and drive we see out of some of these wrestlers that come in for us.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely something you always like to see when they want to put on the best show possible. And everything that I've been able to see is like, wow. Like, I mean, I've seen not so much of her work, but I am familiar with it and have always been impressed. And I'm liking now how women's wrestling had historically been, and I hate to put it this way now, but it was like a bathroom break. I mean, people would be at the shows and it'd be like, oh, I think I can go to bed. But that was back when you'd hear a lot of people talk about how they would be told not to wrestle too much like the guys.
Sure.
And now that doesn't seem to be too much of the case anymore. And they're allowed to, with most promotions anyway, really be able to showcase their talents. And I'm loving seeing that.
Yeah, I agree completely. Especially, in Japan, women's wrestling's always been pretty good, but in America, it's been away the last 10, 15 years, especially. Last few years, even more so. We like to highlight a lot of like female talent, non-binary talent. We do quite a few intergender matches. Our divisions, we don't have a specific women's title, but Jordan Blade holds our super middleweight title, which is men compete for as well. She's held our heavy hitters title, which men compete for as well. We've more or less kind of integrated the divisions.
And that's a very good concept, because people talk about wanting equality, and the women have been wanting to be featured just as equally as the men. And if you integrate it like you have, then they're able to show that they can indeed go just as hard as a lot of the male competitors out there.
Yeah, for certain. We did Jordan Blade and Tom Lawler back in December, and it was a really good match.
I don't know if I've seen that one. I'm gonna have to go watch that one, because that one does sound very like a very good match. I definitely want to go see it.
It definitely.
One thing another thing I like to talk about with each of my guests is your thoughts on like the current state of professional wrestling. Like, I've talked with a few people about it, how they feel that it might not be as popular as it was back in the Attitude Era. But that being said, with the sheer amount of choices, there is so much out there that the business is probably about as healthy as it's ever been. And we're getting somewhat back into the mindset where if somebody asks you if you're a fan of pro wrestling, or you tell somebody that you watch it, there's not so much of a feeling like you have to hide it. Like, oh, that wrestling stuff, it's fake. It's like, oh, okay.
I definitely have seen more, especially with AEW coming onto the scene. I hear about it more. In my work outside of wrestling, people always come to me and ask me like, oh, do you know so and so? Because Lee Moriarty, being a prime example with AEW, used to wrestle for us pretty regularly. So we'll hear things like that. I'll be honest, myself, I don't watch a whole lot of AEW or WWE. I watch quite a bit of stuff on the indies, but the bigger stuff, I'm a big combat sports fan. And MMA, there's a UFC event every week. BKFC, bare knuckle fighting, runs about every week. So I watch a lot of that stuff. And at the end of the day, I'm already watching, and then I watch a lot of boxing too. So like I'm already watching 7-8 hours a week of combat sports. And then, wrestling's kind of a job for me as well, to an extent, being a promoter. So I will be honest, I watch less wrestling now than before I was a promoter.
No, makes perfect sense. I mean, if you're already spending so much time, I mean, I know as a promoter, it takes up quite a bit of time. And, when you have your free time, you like to watch some other things like MMA, the UFC is doing big things. The bare knuckle fighting championship, those guys are becoming pretty big. When you, as pro wrestling, and then that as an extension, even more choices when you're talking the world of combat sports.
Oh, for sure. Because I've never seen there being a whole lot of difference between, MMA and pro wrestling. The joke we make is pro wrestling admits it's a work, MMA doesn't. But that's neither there. But like, you promote them the same. It's kind of the same entertainment. But the big appeal for me, part of it too, is we're in a sports book state. In Indiana, you can bet on sports. I can bet on the UFC. I can't bet on the WWE.
Well, yeah. No, that I can see the appeal behind that. That's for sure. All right. So one thing I like to do to kind of round things off is a little bit of a speed round. I name off some people. You give me your thoughts.
Okay.
All right. So I like to kind of tailor it to the guests. So we talked about a few of these people because they've wrestled a lot for you guys. First off, Cole Radrick.
Heart of gold, great kid, always hungry. I hope he does great. I think he's going to do great, but as long as he can stay healthy and stay focused, I think he's got the whole world in front of him.
Oh yeah, I think the world of him. He's definitely one to keep an eye on if you're getting into wrestling. He's definitely somebody you can get behind. We also talked a little bit about this hard-hitting guy, Hoodfoot.
A lot of the same things I have to say about Cole Radrick. I love Hoodfoot. He's one of my favorite people on earth. A lot of people don't know this, but he's hilarious. Like outside of wrestling, like he's just a really fun person to be around. I can't say enough about his talent in ring, but like he's an even better person than he is wrestler.
That's awesome, and I'm trying to. I mean, a lot of the deathmatch stuff he does. Kind of a deathmatch fan, but yeah, very intense dude and huge fan. You mentioned this man being one of your champions, Shug D.
Shug D is a true pro, and Shug D is always there when we need him. When something goes wrong, and like he's on the phone with us trying to help out where he can. Shug D is a great asset to anybody. I love Shug.
Oh yeah, everything I've seen of his. Another guy I'm a huge fan of. We talked a lot about this guy with regards to the one of your shows coming up, Tom Lawler.
Tom is like I like almost hero worship Tom a lot. Like I've been a fan of Tom since long before we started booking him. Back when he was at the Ultimate Fighter and fighting in the UFC, getting all those Performance of the Night bonuses. I always find it surreal when he comes to wrestle for us because he's in front of New Japan crowds, big crowds, and then he comes and wrestles in front of our, if I'm being generous, 100 fans. I like that. But Tom's a big fan of shoot style wrestling and really puts a lot in when he comes here. So I love having Tom around, and he's a great person for other people in the locker room to learn from.
Oh yeah, he definitely has a good mind for everything. All right, one guy that I'm curious to hear your thoughts about He's been doing big things with AEW. He's recently won the PWG title. Daniel Garcia.
Daniel Garcia is awesome, man. Funny story, before the pandemic, we had this whole run planned for Daniel Garcia. He was actually, our second heavy hitters tournament was originally scheduled for like March 25th, 2020. So obviously that got canceled. But he was scheduled to come in there and kind of start a whole run with us. Pandemic happened. We were able to get him in last summer. We had been trying to for a long time. He came in last summer for us, worked a UWFI rules match, and then a traditional match, worked a couple shows for us. Great dude. Glad we got to have him in before, he blew up like he did.
Yeah, he's definitely blown up there in AEW, being a part of the Jericho Appreciation Society. And then, like I mentioned, he is now the PWG champion, doing big things. All right, so to kind of finish off, where can people find you, and where can people watch Paradigm Pro? So if they're curious, they can go ahead and go look.
So we are on IWTV, independentwrestling.tv. We've got a weekly program, the UWFI Rules Contender Series, that airs every Wednesday at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. Then we also do sporadic other live events, but we've got our weekly series and we've got other live events there. You can find out more about the company at ParadigmProWrestling.com. Follow us on Twitter at ParadigmProWrest, or on Facebook or Instagram. We're on those as well. We are by far most active on Twitter. If you want to get a response, Twitter is probably the place to look for us.
Definitely, and when I post the video, I will be sure to provide links in the description so people can go easy way to find your social medias and find the website. All right, so that is about all I have for today. I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and I definitely look forward to seeing this So Far to Go show.
Thanks very much for having me on. I appreciate it.